I drove up the dirt road and saw tile roofs where there used to be meadow, two Mediterranean villas sitting on my 12 acres, like they'd been there forever. Fresh paint smell, new asphalt, strangers sipping coffee on porches I never authorized. I put my hand on the steering wheel, remembering every nail I'd hammered into my cabin. I'd spent 18 months in Afghanistan clearing IEDs, not so someone could bury my home. A woman approached, extending her hand like we were signing a peace treaty. "Mr. Dawson, I'm Margaret Sterling, HOA president. Welcome to your new community integration." I laughed, bitter. Who integrated it? I didn't get an invitation. Before I tell you how this real estate developer ended up in federal prison and I became Montana's most notorious landlord, drop a comment and subscribe, because this land grab turned into the wildest legal war Flathead County's ever seen. The cabin I'd built with my own hands sat behind wrought iron fencing, surrounded by structures that had no right to exist. I was 42, former Army EOD tech turned private contractor. 18 months clearing landmines in Helmand Province, thinking only about coming home to silence and wilderness. The Afghanistan contract had paid obscenely well, $200,000 for work that aged me a decade. I'd saved almost all of it, planning to finish my cabin, maybe buy equipment for metalworking, possibly retire early to this piece of paradise. I'd bought this land in 2019, specifically because it had no HOA, no covenants, no restrictions, just 12 acres of pine forest overlooking Flathead Lake, no neighbors within 2 miles. That isolation wasn't preference, it was necessity. After 5 tours overseas, I needed space between me and humanity. Before deploying in March 2023, I'd done everything by the book. Hired Vista Property Services to conduct quarterly inspections, filed detailed paperwork with Flathead County explaining I was overseas on contract. My deed was clean, recorded, no complications, just me and Montana wilderness. But Margaret Sterling had seen an opportunity. While I was dodging Taliban rockets, she was building her empire on my land. The cabin stood untouched behind her fence, but everything around it had been transformed. 2 luxury homes with stone facades, landscaping with imported river rock, paved driveways carved through wildflower meadow, solar panels glinted on roofs. Actual residents unpacking groceries, living their lives on my property like they belong there, and the fence, wrought iron, 6 feet tall, running the entire perimeter with signs every 30 feet. Private property, Clearwater Ridge residents only. Even a community gate with keypad and intercom, like a retirement community in Phoenix. Margaret adjusted her designer sunglasses, tablet in hand. "Mr. Dawson, the property was classified as abandoned after 16 months of non-occupancy. Under Montana Code Section 763504, the county approved transitional development rights. We followed proper procedure." My jaw tightened. I was deployed overseas, not abandoning property. According to county records, you suspended utilities, stopped mail, and failed to respond to notices. After the statutory period under Section 7030102, it entered transitional availability. The community voted unanimously. "We've invested over $800,000. She said it like capital investment erased property rights. "You can't claim someone's land because they're overseas." Margaret tilted her head with practiced sympathy. "I understand your frustration, but we have extensive legal documentation. I'd recommend filing a formal dispute through our administrative portal. Though I should warn you, reversal would be extremely complicated given that residents are already living here. We're talking about displacing families." I walked past her without another word. My driveway, the one I'd graded by hand, was now smooth asphalt with decorative borders. The fence probably cost $50,000. My property markers were gone, replaced by HOA stakes. Even my fire pit, built from native stone, had been demolished, now a community gathering area with propane fire table and a plaque reading dedicated to Community Harmony Clearwater Ridge HOA 2024. I circled the perimeter, taking photos, documenting every violation. The old fence line gone. Birdhouses I'd built removed. My vegetable garden plot landscaped over with decorative fountain. By the time I'd completed the circuit, rage had crystallized into something colder. This wasn't opportunism. This was systematic, planned, deliberate. Someone had waited until I was 7,000 miles away, then executed a coordinated land grab. That night at a motel in Big Fork, I barely slept. Around 3 a.m., I jerked awake to explosions, then realized they were in my head, PTSD, bleeding through exhaustion. I sat breathing slowly, using VA techniques. I'd survived 18 months in combat. I wasn't losing my home to a suburban warlord with a clipboard. By 4 a.m., I was at the Stain Motel desk, spreading out papers. My deed from 2019, title insurance, property tax receipts, utility accounts, construction photos. Everything in order, everything legitimate, everything mine. The Flathead County Courthouse opened at 8. I was waiting at 7:30 with my leather folder and gas station coffee that tasted like burnt anger. The clerk was maybe 25, flannel shirt, perpetually bored. Property records under Ethan Dawson. She typed with 2 fingers. Okay, I've got a file, but there's a notation. Parcel entered provisional status about 14 months ago. Provisional status? What does that mean? She turned her monitor. Application filed by Clearwater Ridge HOA for transitional development rights. Signed by Margaret Sterling. Approved by Planning Director Thomas Ridgway. She scrolled to a scanned document. My stomach dropped. Declaration of property abandonment and intent to vacate allegedly signed by me. Date, the 15th of March 2023, 2 weeks after I deployed. I leaned closer. Wrong slant. Different letter formation. Obviously forged. That's not my signature. She shrugged. It was accepted by the county. You've got supporting documentation affidavits from 3 neighbors claiming no activity for 12 months, photographs showing deterioration, utility disconnection records. Combined, they satisfied requirements for abandoned property classification under Montana Code Section 703-0102. The statute made it sound official, but the foundation was fraud. Who approved this? Planning Director Thomas Ridgway. He retired last year, though, left pretty suddenly. She pulled up another screen. Approval was fast-tracked under emergency housing provisions, Section 763504. Waiver of normal public comment period due to housing shortage designation. They'd forged my signature, fabricated evidence, rushed approval through while I was in combat with limited internet. I need copies of everything attached to that transitional claim. 20 minutes and $38 later, I walked out with a thick folder full of lies. I called Vista Property Services, the company I'd paid $6,000 to monitor my property. This is Ethan Dawson, account VPS 2847. I contracted with you to monitor my property while deployed. Did you notice 2 houses being built? Pause. Sir, our standard service covers external visual verification from the nearest public road. We document property as secure and unoccupied per contractual obligations. The road is half a mile from my cabin. Did anyone actually walk onto the property? Standard service doesn't include interior access unless the upgraded package is purchased. Our inspectors saw no visible issues from the designated observation point. They'd driven past from half a mile away, checked a box, collected their fee. Nobody had seen bulldozers or Mediterranean villas rising from my meadow. So you took my money and never actually checked. Sir, we fulfilled contractual obligations as specified. I hung up. My hands were shaking. That afternoon at Planning and Zoning, I asked about the Clearwater Ridge permit, issued March 2024 for 2 single-family accessory structures, approved for emergency housing under state provisions. Emergency housing, those are luxury homes worth $400,000 each. She shrugged. Application classified them as administrative buildings for HOA operations. Classifications can be amended through occupancy permits. Who approved this? Planning Director Thomas Ridgway. Where's he now? She lowered her voice. Retired suddenly last September. Questions about his approval process on several projects, but nothing official. He left pretty quickly, though. Another thread. I paid $35 for the full file. Another folder of fraud. I drove back to my property and pressed the gate intercom button. A man's voice crackled through, annoyed. Clearwater Ridge Security. Ethan Dawson, legal owner. I need access to my cabin. Sir, check in at the HOA office during business hours. This is private community property. This is my property. Open the gate. I'm going to ask you to leave. If you continue disruption, we'll contact law enforcement. The intercom went dead. 10 minutes later, Margaret appeared with two men in CR security polo shirts. Mr. Dawson, this gate controls access to HOA common areas. If you want entry, you'll need to register as a resident, pay appropriate fees, and sign our community covenant. I'm not registering with an HOA on my own land. Then you'll need legal channels. But the community has substantial investment, multiple families living here. Any reversal will face significant opposition. I don't think you want to be responsible for displacing innocent people. Classic manipulation, making me the villain. Those families are living on stolen property, and you stole it. Margaret's smile never wavered. That's a serious accusation. I hope you have substantial evidence before making such claims publicly. Defamation lawsuits can be quite expensive. She walked away, her security detail smirking. I drove straight to Pritchard and Associates, attorneys at law. Brick and timber building, radiating quiet competence. Inside smelled like old books and leather. I need a lawyer who handles property disputes and isn't afraid of fighting dirty against people with money. The receptionist studied me, worn jacket, military bearing, folder under my arm. Let me see if Miss S. Pritchard is available. 5 minutes later, I sat across from Diana Pritchard, 50s, gray-streaked hair, sharp eyes behind reading glasses. Mr. Dawson, Ashley says you have an interesting problem. I spent 40 minutes laying it out, deployment, property management, failure, coming home to houses on my land, Margaret's certainty, forged documents, bribed planning director. Diana listened, taking notes. This is bad, but it's also prosecutable if we can prove fraud. Can you? Depends on discovery, but yes, I think we can. She pulled out a fresh legal pad. Tomorrow I'm filing for emergency injunctive relief, property restoration, demolition of unauthorized structures, compensation, punitive damages. But Ethan, courts are extremely reluctant to order demolitions without overwhelming evidence. We're proving they knowingly, intentionally, maliciously stole your land through forged documents. I've got my deed, everything. That's a start. But they've got approval documents, even if fraudulent. County officials who signed permits? Residents claiming to be innocent third parties. We need to prove systematic fraud investigators, forensic experts, document analysis, computer forensics, time and money. How much? Retainer of $25,000. Trial, another $50 to $75 minimum, could be over $100,000 total. I didn't hesitate. I've got it. Saved combat deployment pay. This is what it's for. Diana smiled, predatory. Good. Then let's go hunting. Diana handled the legal side. I focused on information warfare. I called two people I knew from Iraq the best at what they do. Marcus Chase, digital forensics wizard who'd been Army intelligence before going private. Rita Valdez, private investigator who'd spent 20 years with Montana Highway Patrol and didn't know the meaning of fear. Within 2 weeks, they'd blown the case wide open. Marcus confirmed my signature was forged, a crudely pasted image file on a PDF, created on Margaret Sterling's own computer. Meanwhile, Rita discovered 2 of the 3 neighbors who'd signed affidavits were fabricated names at vacant lots. The third was an 82-year-old widow Margaret had tricked into signing what she thought was a road maintenance petition. But Rita's kill shot was the money trail. $50,000 transferred from Sterling's company to the planning director's wife just 3 weeks before he emergency approved the project. We had her. Not just civil fraud, criminal conspiracy, bribery, forgery, the whole rotten edifice. While Diana prepared the lawsuit, Margaret escalated her PR campaign. She sent me an official letter offering reintegration, pay $32,000 in retroactive fees, sign their covenant, accept restricted use of my own driveway, attend mandatory meetings, acknowledge Clearwater Ridge legitimacy, and waive all liability. In exchange, they'd allow me to access my cabin. I photographed it and posted online. This is what an HOA does when they steal your land while you're deployed in Afghanistan. Within hours, it was shared 10,000 times. Local news picked it up. Veteran returns from Afghanistan to find HOA built luxury homes on his property. By next morning, regional outlets were running it. Montana Public Radio did a segment. The story was going viral. Margaret responded with a newsletter painting me as hostile outsider trying to dismantle affordable housing and displace innocent families. Her board member went on radio. Mr. Dawson is exploiting legal technicalities to interfere with much-needed development. Clearwater Ridge followed proper procedures. The court moved glacially. Judge Robert Sterling, Margaret's uncle, denied our emergency injunction but ordered mediation. Diana wasn't surprised. Mediation delays things. Longer those houses sit, more permanent they look. But we used this time to build our case. The mediation came 6 weeks later in Whitefish. Margaret sat with her attorney, Richard Vance, and 2 board members, looking confident. She offered a handshake. I took it. Let her feel 18 months of calluses. They expected anger. What they got was calculated calm. I played dumb, asked basic questions, pretended not to understand legal terminology. Vance eagerly explained everything, clearly enjoying educating the ignorant contractor. Then I started asking about documentation. Who notarized those county papers? Certified notary through our legal services provider? And the letter I supposedly wrote giving up my land, you still have the original? Submitted digitally, standard procedure, right. And the neighbors who signed affidavits they live nearby? Brief hesitation. Community members who observed the property regularly. I smiled. Got it. Just want everything documented properly. During the break, I called Rita. They're locked in. Everything they said is on record. Now we prove every word was bullshit. 3 days later, Judge Sterling finally recused himself. The pressure, newspaper editorials, public outcry, state bar investigation became too much. Case reassigned to Judge Jennifer Wu from Missoula. I looked her up, 52, sharp, fair, absolutely intolerant of procedural fraud. Perfect. Margaret's team made one last attempt, emergency settlement conference, offering me $350,000. Keep my cabin plus 3 acres. They keep the rest. Diana brought me the offer. They're panicking. This is desperation. Tell them to go to hell. I want every inch back, and I want Margaret in prison. Prison? She committed multiple felonies. Forgery, bribery, theft, conspiracy. Once we win civil, I want the DA to prosecute. Diana studied me. That's scorched earth. She stole from me in a combat zone. She forged documents. She bribed officials. She's been threatening me. Yes, I'm sure. Burn it all down. Okay, then that's what we'll do. The preliminary hearing came on a gray December morning, courthouse packed with reporters and locals who'd followed the case. I walked in wearing clean jeans and button-up, no tie. Margaret sat across the aisle in expensive suit, flanked by 3 attorneys now. Her expression carefully neutral, but I could see the terror in her eyes. Judge Wu took the bench exactly on time. This court determines whether defendants' claims have legal merit and whether plaintiff's evidence warrants emergency relief. Deanna stood. Your Honor, we'll show every document supporting defendant's position is fraudulent. Construction began illegally. A county official was bribed, and this was coordinated criminal scheme to steal my client's land while he defended this country. For 3 hours, Diana built her case methodically. Marcus testified first about digital forensics, showing the courtroom exactly how the signature forgery was created. He pulled up images on screens, fake signature, file metadata, computer registration. This document was created on Margaret Sterling's computer on March 11, 2023. The signature was scanned, then digitally pasted. No legitimate certificate. Crude forgery. Rita testified next about her investigation fake neighbors. Sandra Parker interview, contractor who started work before permits. Diana played the audio. Sandra Parker's elderly voice filled the courtroom. Margaret came to my door with papers, said it was a road maintenance petition. I just signed where she pointed. When the investigator showed me what it really was, I felt sick. I'd never help someone steal land. Gasps from the gallery. Margaret went pale. Then came bank records projected on screens. Your Honor, $50,000 transferred from Sterling Development LLC to Sarah Ridgway, wife of planning director Thomas Ridgway, 17 days before he approved the permit. Vance objected. Consulting fees are common in development. Consulting fees for what service? Mrs. Ridgway was a retired schoolteacher with no development background. This wasn't consultation. This was bribery. Wu studied the evidence carefully. The timing is certainly suggestive. Continue. Eddie Ramirez, the contractor, testified next. I started excavation January 18th, 2024. Miss Sterling said permits were being processed. Not to worry. I trusted her. I didn't know the owner was overseas, with no idea this was happening. The evidence kept coming. Forged signature comparisons, timeline charts, financial records tracing money flows. Each piece hammered another nail. By afternoon, Wu called recess. Diana whispered, "We're destroying them." Vance is scrambling. Margaret looks ready to break. When court resumed, Vance called Margaret to testify. Big mistake. Diana's cross-examination was surgical. Miss Sterling, did you personally create the document claiming Mr. Dawson abandoned his property? The document was prepared by my staff based on county guidelines. Did you personally sign Mr. Dawson's name? No, but did you direct someone else to sign his name? The document was prepared according to proper procedures. That's not an answer. Yes or no? Did someone in your office forge Mr. Dawson's signature? Wu interjected. Answer the question, Miss Sterling. We believe the property was abandoned. We followed. Miss Sterling, was Mr. Dawson's signature authentic? Long silence. Barely audible. The document was prepared by my staff. So no, it wasn't authentic. It was forged. I believed we were acting legally. Diana leaned forward. You believed forging a signature was legal? We were acting for community benefit. The property was unused. People needed housing. Did you know Mr. Dawson was deployed in Afghanistan? Yes. Did you attempt to contact him before claiming his property? We sent notices to his last known address, which you knew would be undeliverable because he was overseas. We followed procedure. You followed procedure you designed to steal his land while he couldn't respond. Isn't that true? Margaret's composure shattered, tears flowing. I was trying to help. The county has a housing crisis. I created homes. I brought value. He wasn't even here because he was serving his country in a combat zone, and you took advantage. The courtroom was silent, except for Margaret's crying. Wu let it hang. I've heard enough. Miss Sterling, step down. Wu looked out over the courtroom. The court finds clear and overwhelming evidence of fraud, forgery, and abuse of administrative procedures. The defendant's claim has no legal merit. Structures were built on illegally obtained permits using forged documents. Pause. Effective immediately, this court grants full restoration of property rights to Mr. Ethan Dawson. Structures erected without legitimate authorization are deemed unlawful. Clearwater Ridge HOA is ordered to vacate within 30 days and pay appropriate compensation. Applause started. Wu gavelled for order. Furthermore, the court refers all findings to the Flathead County District Attorney for criminal investigation into Margaret Sterling and all knowingly complicit parties. Evidence suggests multiple felonies including forgery, bribery, conspiracy, and theft. That's when the sheriff's deputies entered. One walked straight toward Margaret. Margaret Sterling, you're under arrest on suspicion of fraud, forgery, bribery, theft, and conspiracy. Please stand and place your hands behind your back. The courtroom erupted. Margaret's attorneys were shouting about procedure. Margaret sat frozen, staring at the deputy like she couldn't believe this was happening. Miss Sterling, stand up, please. She stood slowly, mechanically. They cuffed her right there, in front of everyone. As they led her toward the door, she turned and found me. No arrogance, no confidence, just raw fear and dawning realization that everything was gone. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just watched her being led away in handcuffs, thinking about all the nights in Afghanistan, sleeping in plywood barracks, mortars in the distance, dreaming about coming home to my cabin. She'd tried to steal that dream. Now she was paying the price. Outside, reporters were waiting. Cameras, microphones, shouted questions. I gave them 3 sentences. My land has been restored. Justice has been served. Margaret Sterling will face consequences for her crimes. That night I drove back to my property. The gate stood open, abandoned. I drove through slowly, looking at the 2 villas that had no right to exist. Lights still on in one residence packing. The structures that seemed so permanent weeks ago now looked temporary, fragile, doomed. My cabin sat where I'd left it, untouched. I parked and walked to the porch. The door was still locked with my original lock. I turned the key and stepped inside. Dust everywhere, stale air, but it was mine, completely, legally, indisputably mine. I sat on the porch as the sun set over Flathead Lake, thinking about 18 months in Afghanistan, the nightmare of coming home to stolen land, months of fighting to get it back, thinking about Margaret Sterling, who'd spend years in prison, learning that some people's property isn't yours to take just because you want it. 8 months of hell was over, and for the first time since coming home, I actually felt like I was home.